darkness, a thick, suffocating velvet that has become his only companion. In the silence of the cell, the only sound is the ragged rhythm of his own breathing, each exhale a puff of defiance against the damp stone. His eyes are shut, not in sleep, but in a grim acceptance of the inevitable. The cross awaits. He has made his peace with it, or so he tells himself. Then, a sudden, violent clang rips through the quiet. The iron gate groans open, and a blinding spear of daylight stabs into the gloom. He flinches, squinting as his pupils scream in protest. A silhouette stands in the doorway, a harbinger of the final act. He is hauled from his hole, the sudden grip of the guards a rough reminder of his powerlessness. They drag him through a stone corridor and thrust him into a vast, sun-drenched courtyard. The world erupts. His eyes adjust, taking in the chaotic scene. Above the sea of faces, on a marbled balcony, stands the governor, Pontius Pilate, his expression a mask of weary disdain. And next to him, another prisoner. This one is different. He stands silent, still, a strange calm radiating from him that cuts through the surrounding madness. His name is Jesus. Pilate raises his hands, a futile attempt to quell the human storm below. The crowd's roar subsides to an expectant murmur. The governor's voice, amplified by the stone architecture, rings out over the courtyard. I have a custom of releasing one prisoner to you at the festival. He gestures, first towards the silent man, then towards him. Whom do you want me to release to you? Barabbas, or Jesus who is called Christ? A smirk plays on Barabbas's lips. It's a foolish game that he knows these people. They lust for violence, for the spectacle of death. They will choose the one who promises the greatest show, the most brutal end. They will scream for the insurrectionist, the murderer. They will scream for his blood. The governor's question hangs in the air, a final, desperate gambit. The crowd surges, a single, monstrous entity. And then it speaks. Barabbas. It is not the cry he expected. It is his name, but not as a curse. It is a demand for his freedom. Shock, pure and absolute, washes over him, momentarily erasing the smirk, the defiance, the grim acceptance. His head whips from the frenzied mob to the bewildered governor, and then, finally, to the silent man beside him. The man who will take his place. The man who will carry the cross meant for him. Pilate, his face a portrait of defeat and resignation, gives a final, weary nod to the guards. The soldier's hands are rough as he unlocks the heavy iron shackles from Barabbas's wrists. The chains fall away, clattering onto the stone floor with a final, metallic finality. A harsh shove propels him forward, down the steps and into the very crowd that had, moments before, bayed for his death. He stumbles, a free man, disoriented by the sudden liberty. He is jostled and pushed, swallowed by the throng. Before the tide of bodies carries him away completely, he casts one last look back. He sees Jesus, the man called Christ, being led away by the soldiers, his silent journey to the cross beginning. The alleyways of Jerusalem close in around Barabbas, and the world fades to black. The jeers and whispers followed him through the winding, dusty streets of Jerusalem. A ghost walking among the living. Barabbas stumbled, his newly granted freedom feeling more like a lead weight in his gut than a release. People pointed, their faces a mixture of awe and disgust. That's him, they'd murmur, the one they let go. He tried to lose himself in the chaos of the festival crowd, snatching a skin of wine from a vendor's stall. He brought it to his lips, desperate for the familiar burn, but the taste was it was bitter, hollow. This wasn't freedom. It was a cage of a different kind, one built from confusion and a gnawing, inexplicable guilt. The celebration felt like a wake, and he was the guest of honor at a funeral he didn't understand. A sound, dull and rhythmic, cut through the noise of the city. A slow, agonizing drumbeat that wasn't a drum at all. It was the sound of heavy wood dragging over stone, a sound every man in Judea knew and feared. Against his will, Barabbas found himself drawn toward it, his feet moving as if guided by an unseen hand. Then he saw it, the grim procession snaking its way toward the hill of the skull, Golgotha, and he saw him. The Galilean, Jesus, his back a ruin of torn flesh, a crown of thorns pressed cruelly into his brow. He stumbled, collapsing under the immense weight of the rough-hewn crossbeam. For a single, searing moment, their eyes met across the crowd. the same eyes that had looked at him in the courtyard, filled not with judgment, but with something Barabbas couldn't name. The moment broke, and the Nazarene was hauled back to his feet, but the image was burned into Barabbas's mind that he couldn't turn away. Like a moth drawn to a flame that promised only destruction, he followed the throng up the slope of Golgotha. He kept to the edges, a shadow clinging to the fringes of the spectacle. Finding a place behind a large, sun-bleached rock, he became an unseen witness to the execution that should have been his. The cross was dropped into its hole with a sickening thud. He watched, his stomach churning, as the soldiers stretched out the man's arms. He heard the sharp, brutal strike of the hammer, once, twice, a third time. A wave of nausea washed over him. Every hammer blow felt like it was striking his own flesh, every muffled cry of pain echoing in the hollow space where his soul used to be. This was his cross, this was his death, and another man was dying it for him. As the Nazarene hung between two other condemned men, a strange and terrible thing began to happen. The bright afternoon sun vanished, swallowed by a darkness that swept across the sky with unnatural speed. A cold wind began to howl, whipping dust and fear through the gawking crowd. People grew uneasy, their taunts and jeers dying on their lips as they looked to the heavens. Then, a voice, powerful and clear, ripped through the gloom from the central cross. "It is finished." A deafening crack of thunder shook the very foundations of the hill, and a violent storm broke loose. Rain lashed down, and the earth itself seemed to groan and tremble. The crowd, once so bold, screamed in pure terror. They scrambled, they fell, they fled, a panicked herd desperate to escape the sudden, terrifying wrath of a god they had just been mocking. The deluge ceased as abruptly as it had begun. The wind died, the thunder faded, and an eerie silence descended upon the hill. Drenched and shaking, Barabbas was left utterly alone, staring at the three dark silhouettes against a bruised and wounded sky. The man who had taken his place was dead. Slowly, his hand went to his belt, his fingers closing around the familiar hilt of his rebel's dagger, the symbol of his life of violence and insurrection. It felt alien now, a relic from a life that was no longer his. With a trembling hand, he pulled it free and simply let it go. The dagger hit the wet, rocky ground with a sharp clatter, the sound swallowed by the profound silence, fade to black. The storm is over. Darkness clings to the hill of Golgotha, but it is a quiet, settled dark. At the foot of three empty crosses, Barabbas is on his knees. The dagger he dropped lies in the dirt beside him, forgotten. He stares at the center cross, a stark silhouette against the first, faint hint of dawn breaking over the horizon. The air is still, heavy with the weight of what has happened here. He was supposed to die on that cross. The crowd had screamed his name, a chorus of deliverance for him, a death sentence for the other man. Now, in the silence, that man's last words echo in his mind, words not of rage or defiance, but of forgiveness. A forgiveness so vast it feels like an accusation. He rises, a ghost in the pre-dawn gloom, and walks back through the winding streets of Jerusalem. He moves on instinct, his feet carrying him to the rebel safe house, the only home he has ever known. The door is ajar, a sliver of lamplight and rough laughter spilling into the alley. Peering from the shadows, he sees them, his men, his brothers in arms. They are gathered around a table, maps spread out, wine flowing freely. They are arguing, their voices thick with drink and ambition, already planning their next raid, their next glorious failure. They do not notice him. He is a phantom at their feast, an invisible stranger watching a life that is no longer his. He was their leader, the strong arm of their rebellion. Now, he sees only the endless, bloody cycle of their rage. Without a word, he turns his back on the light, on the noise, on the only identity he has ever had, and walks away into the darkness. Drawn by a quiet sorrow, he finds himself in a humble corner of the city. A small group is gathered in the courtyard of a simple house. They are Jesus' followers. He expects to see them sharpening blades, plotting vengeance against the Romans, against the priests, against the crowd that betrayed their master. Their grief is a palpable thing, immense and overwhelming, yet it is clean. There is no trace of the seething hatred that has fueled his entire life. It is Mary Magdalene that he braces for the accusation, the condemnation he deserves. But he sees none to eye in her gaze. There is only a profound sorrow, a sorrow so deep it seems to have room for everyone, even for him. He is shaken, not by a threat, but by their quiet, impossible strength. This is a power he has never encountered, a strength not of the sword, but of the spirit. The realization drives him back into the city's labyrinthine alleys, back to the place where it all began. He stands in the narrow, dark passage where he committed the murder that sealed his fate. A quick, distorted flash burns behind his eyes. The face of the Roman soldier, young and terrified, gasping for his last breath as Barabbas's dagger found its mark. He reaches out a trembling hand and touches the cold, damp stone of the wall, the same wall that bore witness to his crime. The abstract cause of rebellion dissolves, and the brutal reality of his actions crashes down upon him. He had died for him, for Barabbas, the killer. A wave of nausea and self-loathing grips him, and he understands the true weight of the grace he has been given. It was a gift for the lowest of men. He collapses against the wall, the dam of his pride and rage finally breaking, and sobs into the filth of the alley. As the sun's first full rays spill over the city walls, painting the stone gold, he picks himself up. He is no longer the same man. He walks with a purpose he doesn't yet understand, straight to the city gates. He does not look back at the life he is leaving, at the man he was. He looks at it for a moment, then opens his hand and lets it fall into the dust of the road. With empty hands and a soul stripped bare, Barabbas walks out of Jerusalem. He steps into the unknown dawn, a free man at last, as the world around him fills with blinding, brilliant light.